we're ready. Okay, we're gonna get the meeting started. We anticipate James to be here. Mike stuck in traffic, who knows? So go ahead, Mayor, you wanted to.
Yes.
You know?
So, well, first of all, an announcement. Today, we officially sold land to Amazon, closing the third, and it's an exciting day.
Nice.
This, at least until we finish our industrial part 3, this will become our largest taxpayer. And it's a good day, not just for real property taxes, but for personal property taxes, motor vehicles, sewer connection fees, building permit fees. It's a very good transaction for the borough. Secondly, James, I hope he's going to be here. He had a personal issue in his life, and I told him to deal with that, and together with this qualified group of people, and we will pick up the platform. Now, what I want to do tonight is we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things relating to the Board of Education budget, and I'm really looking for feedback on a host of issues that we're going to be discussing. But just to get everyone, up to speed to fully understand the situation, as we know, on the town side of the equation, we are up $875,000, which is an extremely good number. I think all departments did a fantastic job, and I think the finance board did a great job. It was a little easier this year on the town side, but all of our department heads were cooperative and made reasonable requests. And I think we've done a good job with that side of the budget. Now, on the Board of Ed side, they've had some challenges, mostly in the special education realm. But they are up between 6.1 and 6.4 million. So that number creates the challenge for us this year because it's a large number. Now, when we did our projections in our phase-in for year 3, we projected conservatively, we thought that they would be up as high as 2.5 million and the town would be up about 2 million. So the town is $1 million under, probably a little more than $1 million under what we projected, but they are up about 4 million more. So when all is said and done, we have to come up with some strategies as to how to approach this gap, and I want to talk about them at several different layers and take questions as we go. So the first thing that we've been working on, and when I say we, I've been working with Allison, our finance team. I've been talking to Chris and Jeff, and I've been talking to James, and we've been talking somewhat here, but we really haven't gotten into the heart of it. But the first thing that I want to do this year is to get a little creative with our capital budget. Now, we have had, I don't know how many, but quite a few great years in a row. And we have been able to accumulate some excesses, additional funds in our capital reserve account in anticipation of, improving parks, improving the town, and, preparing for a variety of improvements going forward. So we also have in our capital budget funds that we created for use for school projects. So our capital reserve account has money allocated for schools. It has money, undesignated money for the town in the future. Now, what I want to do and what we planned as one way to address this disparity is, first of all, in our 23-24 budget, we have a surplus of 1.7 million that we haven't, designated where it's gonna go yet. So what I want to have happen is that 1.7 million will be designated to go to capital reserve to take our existing balances and increase them by 1.7 million. Secondly, the funds that we have allocated to the Board of Ed for capital. Now, there's a little over 2 million, but we've spent about 1 million on the turf field at the high school. The money's already spent, but we have about $992,000 left. I want to take those funds, which were created by the borough anyway, but take those funds and transfer them to undesignated capital reserve in order that we can have an even larger capital reserve. When we do that, we will then be able to utilize our capital reserve account to pay for all of the capital items on the town side and the Board of Ed side in this year's budget. So, in other words, there's about $3 million of money that we will not be passing on to the taxpayers. We will be using capital reserve funds to pay for those items. If we do that, that gives us a much stronger overall position. We will not be endangering our capital reserves going forward, and it'll be a way to gain some extra funds that we can use for the difficult situation that we're in. So that's, let me stop there and first of all, see if anyone has any questions or if I explained it clearly. And I'd like to get some comments on that plan to start. Is there anyone who doesn't like it or likes it, or questions or comments on our use of capital reserves? Eric.
So when we first started these meetings, we had talked about trying to raise the town's credit rating with the state.
Yep.
Does having that money in savings does that help our credit rating, or does it hurt us to spend this money in that sense?
So let me answer it this way. Capital reserves won't be a problem. Fund balance becomes a problem or an issue. So the fund balance is not capital reserves. Capital reserves are money there's two forms of it. There's designated and undesignated. So some of the money in our capital reserve account is already designated for the projects that are underway. The undesignated capital reserve is money that we can use for capital projects. Now, that's totally different from our fund balance, which is our savings account, so to speak. Use of the fund balance could have an impact on the bond rate.
Okay.
If that is,
Yeah, so this doesn't.
and what I just described does not contemplate use of the fund balance. Now, we may talk about that issue and we may create a new policy on fund balance this year. Because that will also help us with our long-term bond rating. And we will talk about that, I'm gonna say before the summer. So, that's a good question, and everyone should understand that. So we have, when we look at the budgets, we have a town budget, we have a Board of Ed budget, we have a capital budget, we have capital reserves, designated and undesignated, and we have a fund balance, which is like a savings account. Now, all of those accounts have a whole host of subcategories to them, but essentially, those are the main accounts for the town. So, we feel confident that we can use capital reserves, still have adequate reserves, not impact our credit rating by use of capital reserves, still have our same growing fund balance, and, be in a strong position.
The only thing I didn't hear is, how do we gain by putting these two funds together?
How we gain is, we have more money available to spend on education
Okay,
without raising the mill rate.
okay,
And I guess I probably should have mentioned it, I think everyone knows that I've said it enough, but the borough board has, made it clear that our intention is to reduce the mill rate by 2 mills.
right. I know that.
So in order to do that.
Right.
We have to get creative,
Right.
so fund balance
That's
is,
one of the ways of getting creative.
it's probably, I would say it's the best way.
Okay.
Let me also say that if everyone came in, according to our projections, we would have probably a 4 mil.
Yeah.
Tax rate reduction. So when I say two is good,
Right.
3 is better, 4 is fantastic, but we can't have a 4 mil rate reduction and take care of, as many of the needs of the Board of Ed as we would, I think that.
I can't imagine that anybody hasn't noticed that absolutely everything has gone up. I mean, there can't be a big surprise that we can't do a 4 mil decrease this year, not in this economy, just
Right.
Well, I would say, based on the economy, we could, it's special, but for special education, we could have done it, if it doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed, but it's beyond our control with special education.
I'm
So what-
saying 2 mil, not a 4. I mean, I'm saying, I'm talking like, you can't, nobody could really expect a 4 mil decrease right now.
Well, I
When
did,
you- I know you do. I know you do. That's why we like you, Pete. You have that nice positive
well, I
outlook.
never announced it, but that was what was in my
I know,
head.
I knew what you're saying, I do.
3 mil. Because my taxes are gonna go in.
Allison.
Is there a question
I
out
see a
there?
hand raised.
What?
Yeah.
Is there a hand?
me.
Well, I,
Bob,
Bob.
What?
Burgess now. Burgess now.
oh, yes, Bob,
How are you this evening?
never better, how are you?
Awesome. Quick question regarding capital projects. Allison, where do we still fit with the state on any reimbursements? Are there still any out there for reimbursement on projects?
Well, we're gonna get to that next,
Okay,
right now, we're only talking about reserves. I'm gonna switch to facilities and those issues next.
thank you.
Now I have just a question. So, and again, I'm just looking at this number. So capital other on the Board of Ed is 1,026,798. And I don't know if that number's changed, but that's what's right here.
Right.
Are you saying that we're going to absorb that 1 million?
I didn't get to that yet.
Oh,
So
Sorry.
right now, I'm talking about reserve budget. You're looking at their budget.
okay.
So,
He's setting the
so
stage.
remember.
Sorry, I apologize.
We're all jumping to
You got ahead of me, right? So far, we haven't talked about the
Okay,
annual capital budget. We've only talked about money we have in reserve.
Mayor, what was the number on last year's surplus again?
1.7.
1.7 million.
and what was the 992,000?
That is, designated capital reserve
For the
dedicated to Board of Ed project that we intend to change to undesignated capital reserve.
Okay, okay.
All right, any questions or concerns about capital reserve? Okay. All right, number 2. this topic will hit upon Bob and Diane's question. And it's gonna talk about this year's capital, on the Board of Ed side, and facilities and things of that nature. So the second part of, I'm gonna say, our plan to best address the gap with education is on the facilities side of the equation, which includes things that would be spent in this year's budget. And if you look at the Board of Ed budget, they have designated the sum of $765,000 for items that they want to spend this year from the funds we give them for capital projects. All right? They also have in my judgment, too many people on the upper echelon of facilities. So what we have been talking about, and we have discussed this here, and we have discussed it at the borough board, would be a revamping of the way in which school facilities are managed. And we would, in essence, be moving that whole concept to the town side. We would be taking their $765,000 capital budget, having them not have to spend any of that money. All of the items on that side of the equation that have to be dealt with in the current fiscal year will be dealt with by the borough. We're also proposing the elimination of 3 positions on their facility team. And that's also 3 benefit packages. And when you add those all up, that comes to about 1.2 million. So to me, what that does is, and I'm estimating their shortfall between 6.1 and 6.4 at 6.2. But just to round it off, if their shortfall is 6.2 and we take 1.2 million and put it on the borough side, that reduces the shortfall from 6.2 to 5. So to me, that's a good thing for a lot of reasons. I think they are extremely top heavy on the facility side, and on the borough side, they have 3 people managing. We really have none. We have a team of people. We have a building inspector, a fire marshal, a mayor. We have Bob Ness committee, which will remain in place. I want to take Jim Scully from the Board of Ed facilities and put him on our 5-year capital plan. And as a group, we want to run all of the facilities on the borough side. Number one, not to save money and to help us bridge the gap, but also to be more efficient on a town-wide basis. Town electricians, town plumbers, and when I say town, I don't mean people who work for us, employees, but people who we hire through an approved vendor methodology, which to me works better than going out to bid on every project, no matter how large. So I think that our 5-year capital team, our borough in-house team, and maybe beefing it up a little bit. By the way, we're still analyzing this, and we have until July 1 to get it perfect, but we're going to find a way to be more efficient. And with fields, with schools, it would be for all exterior work on buildings, fields, and capital projects would be run by the borough. Those funds would be, on the borough side, not on the Board of Ed side. And, going forward, I think we can find, many efficiencies, and any large project will go through our 5-year capital committee that Bob Neff is the chairman of. So let me stop there and take questions on that concept.
Jim Scully is a member of our committee, just to let you know.
Okay. Well, he might become more important now.
Yep.
When did we make him a member, Bob? I remember
When we started doing the schools, he became part of our Naugatuck Standing Building Committee.
Okay, good. So we don't have to put him there. He's already there.
No.
All right, excellent. And we will be, maybe you as well, Bob, if you want to join us, but we'll be meeting with many people on the education side to, so we can have a smooth transition and not really miss a beat. But any questions on that concept, which again is designed to take about 1.2 million off of the shortfall? Kim?
You already know how I feel about this because I've been nattering in your ear about it for a while. But I would like to say, the biggest thing that it does is, doesn't make educators choose between purchasing textbooks or purchasing lawn care. And I'm saying that at the very lowest level, you can make it into a better, more accurate statement in your mind. I think it's really important that we do this, that we realize the savings. And I think it's really important, and I love that you're saying, have Jim Scully, make sure Jim Scully stays on this committee, or someone who knows schools. Because maintaining town hall is very different than maintaining a school.
Yeah.
And I think there's gonna be a little sticker shock on the town side of just how much goes into maintaining a school and staying ahead for safety, for, well, you know what, you had me in safety. Those are big, big things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
And I think the principals and the janitors
I think
will
so too.
play a bigger role
Awesome,
on the town side.
Definitely.
awesome. I like the way you're talking about it. I like the savings that I'm hearing in it. I think it'll save moving forward as well. But most importantly, like I said, educators have been making decisions about education, which is their area of expertise. And an even more cohesive relationship with the town will occur. That's in a perfect world, but that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Bob, are you good?
I'm good. I just want to let everybody know that the school has been coming to our committee for the last 5 years so that we're on top of all their projects and make sure that the money is spent in the right way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and the only thing we're gonna add to that, Bob, is they're smaller projects, so,
Right. No, I get that.
yeah, so.
How about the question I asked prior about reimbursement from the state? Where are we with the state on that? And do we have any projects up at the state that we need to have reimbursement to us?
Well, with the asbestos projects, they're all taken care of, right?
I think we're waiting on final reimbursement, but I have to confirm it.
Yeah, so I think the answer, Bob, is we're waiting for final reimbursement on those asbestos floor removal projects that we just did. And at this time, we do not have a request in for which we're seeking state reimbursement. I will say that discussions of that nature will always be ongoing between the town and the Board of Education side. At all times, it's not like they're never gonna talk again. We will always have a dialogue and input on all of those issues.
A hand is raised, I can't tell who it is.
Mr. Monti.
That's Anthony Rakowski.
Anthony Rakowski. Anthony,
Chris
That's
Montini,
Chris.
Now I think it's Chris.
Chris
Yeah, Chris.
Montini.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The hand on is the upper right.
The hands,
Okay.
oh, gotcha.
all right.
Mayor, am I permitted to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, is that Chris?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
I believe that we still have to have two meetings to close out the asbestos flooring. I think the building committee has to close the project officially. And then the Board of Ed does, and then we'll be able to apply for the reimbursement for the asbestos floors. So we're right at the end.
Yeah, but on the second half of that, there's no new project for which we have an application at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So everything has been paid. The only thing that we will be doing from this point forward would be seeking additional money back.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so far we've talked, we seem to be on the same page for capital reserves. We're on the same page for facilities, transferring of responsibilities. So where does that leave us? So that leaves us with, I'm gonna say an approximate gap of 1.5 million, okay? So, and if you look at the number 6.2 minus 1.2 is 5, we have anticipated that they would be up, so all of our projections have them up to. Now we anticipated the town being up more than we are, so we're at about 3.5. Will still keep us right in the range of that reduced mill rate. So the gap that we face is somewhere between one, 6.1 sounds like a big number, but when you do everything we've done so far, that brings us into the, I'm going to say, gap is between 1 and 1.5 million, depending on what we do with everything else. So that the final decision, and by the way, tonight we're talking in words. Tomorrow night, we'll start talking more in actual numbers, same conversation, but looking at numbers. We will be looking for solutions, ideas, ways to bridge the gap, and how much of a gap there will be at the end of the day. So, but the number we're off. I guess the good news is it's not as bad as it sounds, but we're still off by at least $1 million.
Where does the medical insurance come into this?
Okay, so for which year? For next year, it's in there.
Okay,
For this year, we're gonna have to have a separate meeting and discussion on this year's medical insurance. Does that answer your question?
well, yeah, you say you have this year and then you have next year to
Yeah.
figure out.
So right now, we're talking about next year.
Mhm.
So the medical insurance is included for next year. For this year, before July, probably more like mid-June, or early June, mid-June, we're gonna have to address that issue. So now in the past, when we got to this point, what we've done before is we've created two scenarios as a guide so that you can see and understand, wrap your arms around and feel the mill rate issue. So when, like 1 million short, what is 1 million in mills? Okay, It's actually 2/3 of a mil, so. Yeah, at the end of the day, what you all get the big dollars for is to make those final decisions. So, commencing tomorrow night, and knowing that Monday night, next Monday, a week from tonight, we're gonna finish, we're gonna present the budget to the joint boards for approval. It'll be voted on by the joint boards. It'll be published in the paper. It'll go to public hearing and, will ultimately be adopted.
So question, what is the plan to manage the MBR for the Board of Ed? So that it doesn't keep going beyond a point that we can't pull it back?
Good question. So the plan is that once we pick a number, I'll just say 4 million, okay? So of that 4 million, a portion of it will go to them to be spent under 10-220 as they see fit. A portion of it will remain on the town side. So for example, unemployment insurance, things like that, where there's really no discretion, there's a bill and you pay it, can remain on the town side. So there is a plan, but we can't really get to that until we pick a number. So we're gonna have to say, all right, this is the mill rate, this is the capital budget. You know, we're all set here, we're not gonna cut anything out of it, we're gonna give the Board of Ed, whatever number you pick, 4.2 million more, 2.1 on the town side, 2.1 on their side, however it's done. The mill rate is here, there's still a gap of 500,000, whatever it is, but all those numbers have to be, you know, right to the dollar. So I'm just gonna speak for myself on the discussion side, but you know, on the town side, other than the Balmer's Pond discussion we had last week, you know, there really aren't that many items that are big enough to make a dramatic difference. And I hesitate to punish any of our departments who are working so hard to do a good job, improve services, and get better every year. So, like, I think that on the town side, I'm not saying there's nothing that can't be cut, but I think that we've already done a good job, and I think the department heads have done a good job of getting us to a very fair point. On the capital budget side, let's and this is, I guess, breaking news from the standpoint of Balmer's Pond. But I thought we could do with Balmer's Pond what we're doing with our safety project for the radio and dispatch. That will start the project this year. We'll have our own forces, get rid of anything that's unsafe. We'll start the project in the capital budget for the next year. And we'll finish it the following year and spread the job over 2 fiscal years. But it's really within, say, a 3-month period that will fall in 2 fiscal years. So we can start and finish Balmer's Pond. We can start and finish the safety project, spread both of them over 2 fiscal years, and continue improving our parks and, you know, all aspects of the town on a gradual basis, like we've done so far. The paving program will stay on schedule. Everything will stay on schedule.
I think for Bombers Pond, now I was there this weekend and I looked at things and,
Yeah, I didn't see what you.
you know, the thing is I think,
This came from you?
yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
I think the equipment for the kids seems to be pretty sturdy. It doesn't look like it's dilapidated or falling apart. A couple of the swings probably need to be repaired because there are some splits for the small type swings. And a lot of it is really just maintenance of the grounds. Really bringing the grounds back up to a level that's appropriate. Because there's some divots there where the swings are, the weed back is showing, there's some stones that are loose. So I could see where somebody could get hurt on that, but from general maintenance, just kind of like going in and resurfacing the landscape area, putting in the new mulch. And then maybe just kind of maintaining the tennis and the basketball court.
So the basketball court is shot.
Yeah, that's got a big dip in the center with a pool in it.
The plan, I think, was to totally revamp the basketball court, to take the vacant court and build tennis or pickleball
Okay.
or whatever, and to not only do the things you mentioned, but start turning Balmer's Pond into something much closer to Linden Park, which would be, you know, a new park, a revamped park. And, you know, Balmer's Pond has become a very popular.
Yeah, there
spot.
was a ton of people there over the weekend.
No, I just mean it's
Yeah.
really,
Kids
really become
were
popular.
swinging and,
Can we have maybe for next Monday? And do you think Jim Stewart or whomever over there can take, because you had said you gave the.
I gave the
drive.
flash drive of all the pictures I took
Right.
to Allison.
So to
Just
Alan,
send them to Sandra.
Yeah, then I can't, it won't let me send
She has
anything,
the
so
flash
she has
drive.
the flash drive.
and then maybe by next Monday, they can give us a better idea of, because I don't want to raise it either. I don't want to raise the park, like she was talking about how dangerous it was. Well, in looking at the pictures, it doesn't look like, you know, it's that dangerous. Improvements need to be made. What can be done so that these kids can have a safe summer this year?
And then once it's done, you just have to have a regular maintain
Right.
schedule.
So maybe for next Monday, if
Except-
Sandra,
Except that they are the technicians on the site, and we are sitting here in a finance board meeting or from some pictures.
well, no,
to say what is,
no, that's what
No,
I'm
but I'm
saying,
just saying,
that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
they can look at what I've
Have
done,
Sandra
yeah.
look at the flash drive, to look at the pictures and get back to us next Monday to tell us what she thinks, not what we think,
Right.
what she thinks about what needs to be done
Right.
immediately and what that cost is, instead of the flat 400 or
Well, I think it was important to at
$500,000.
least look at the area because
Yeah.
we just got, like, it has to be like
Yeah.
demolished, it's not, you know.
Well, they
But
came
when I
here and
went
said there's
there-
a safety issue. Did they say any specifics?
No.
They didn't
They
really
said there-
say,
They said there was a safety issue and we said plow the whole thing down.
Well,
but
I
that's
think we
not
might have
necessarily what
overreacted.
you need to do.
No,
I'm
she's,
just saying.
no, she was the one that first mentioned plow it down.
yeah.
She was the one that mentioned plow it down. My thing is being in insurance and claims.
Yeah.
Once it's public, that she says
Gotta
as
do
an
something.
official,
Yeah.
says that there's safety
Right.
issues, somebody gets hurt, we're on notice.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were kids using it, there was kids
Yeah.
swinging on the
It
swings.
doesn't mean
and-
there's not a safety issue that we're not seeing, so I just wanna know what that is, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think the
Like that.
tennis courts, the basketball
Doesn't
court are
prevent
probably the
fall
biggest
issue.
things there, but
Yeah,
as far as the grounds, it's just maintaining the grounds and bringing it back up to, you know, like a small tyke can get on a swing.
yeah.
You know, right now, you need help getting on it.
Was the pictures attached? I just, cause
I couldn't attach any
You couldn't
pictures,
attach,
so
okay.
there's a packet going around with pictures.
Okay.
But Allison has the flash drive and she can get them for us.
Anyone wanna see it? Pass it down to Mrs.
My printer was not acting well, so they're not the best pictures.
Allison, were you able, now this is still talking about capital, were you able to talk to Jim about that 30%,
The tariffs?
the tariffs?
I didn't talk to him about it, I just quantified it. My understanding through James was that you took it out. The group took it out.
Right, do you know what that number is?
59,400.
Right.
Sorry,
59,400.
okay.
And then we were also talking about the Connecticut Partnership Funds. Cause it was light in the overall versus the,
Right now, it seems for 30 unless you,
well, 30 is what it was in for, but in the package last week, it only had like 10, I think, or something in it.
It's been updated.
Okay, so it was updated, all right,
That's the new number he was speaking of.
okay.
The 875. It had all that taken into consideration.
So, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to this question, I apologize. Are we talking about taking over the $1 million in capital and other from the Board of Ed?
I think it was just the 765, which is the boiler and all that stuff on page 86 of the Board of Ed budget. It gives you the 765 breakdown.
but,
Okay,
here, let me show you again, I got it right here.
because it's showing 1 million.
That says capital and other though.
Right.
It's like other
Okay.
items are in there.
Okay, no, that's fine, if it's 700,
65, it's the top item.
Yeah, right here. That,
Okay.
this is their budget,
gotcha, okay.
it's,
Yeah, cause you say that you just.
Thank you, now we get it.
now, I can't see who's up there, but is Sandra or Jim or Jeremy up there?
I don't see them.
What?
No, they're not.
They'll probably, they'll be on there tomorrow.
Okay, all right,
The emergency center.
what?
Emergency center.
Emergency center. Emergency center.
So on the emergency center, to be more specific, what we've done is, I think what I said the last time we were there, but maybe not, I'll say it again. We're gonna take 400,000 to $1.4 million project. We're putting 400,000 in this year's budget, thereby committing right now to putting $1 million next year. And we'll time the project so we won't spend more than 400,000 in the next fiscal year. So we'll probably do the project starting next May, June, July, August. We'll spend 400 in this year's budget, $1 million in next year's budget.
James Higgins proposed a 10-year lease
Well,
as another option.
very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So there's also an option of leasing the improvements for the safety project over 10 years, which would reduce it this year or next year, but it would be spread out over 10 years with some interest. So over 10 years, it would be more expensive, but it would be much easier to accomplish this year and next year, given the emergency at the Board of Education with special education.
It's 192 a year.
It would be 192 for 10 years.
With the projections of what kind of income is coming in from Amazon and then moving forward with all these projects, that sounds like a pretty sound deal to me. This stuff is always getting upgraded, leasing always includes the opportunity to upgrade. I don't know, it sounds like a win-win to me.
I like that idea too, is the leasing idea. I mean, you're gonna spend, an extra $400,000 in interest over
We're
the
gonna
10-year
give you a
period.
lesson in democracy. Is there anyone who doesn't like leasing?
Yeah, I know.
You also have the flexibility.
Hence the reason why. I
There
leased
is
my-
none.
That's the reason why I leased my solar panels.
You do have the opportunity if things start becoming better with your revenue sooner to pay it off early.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, can you buy out the lease early?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're in the.
yeah, as
room
long
when
as
they
there's no
design-
cost after 5 years maybe or something.
We're in the room when they.
You
design it.
negotiate it.
Make them.
It's usually still less than the interest would end up being,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah. It's certainly worth the idea.
Right, just also, Dorothy, on your question about, which items are gonna go where? So, various items that could go to the town side. Which we calculate together, so I mean, there's no. The numbers are the numbers, but, the BOE pension contributions, 736,000. BOE workers comp 823. Their OPEB contribution 25. Dental self-insurance 660, unemployment insurance 50. So those are the type of numbers that we could safely take care of, that would not interfere with their operation of the school system.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
so those are the numbers we would be looking at as we address the issue that you raised, Bill.
Yeah, that's good. I only know of one town that actually was able to reduce their Alliance MBR. I think that was Middletown. Because they lost a good portion of enrollment and they actually won that suit. But that's the only one I know that was able to do that.
Also, we are,
It's fine.
we're always open to, ideas, if anyone has any great ideas how to do better in any area.
Oh, yeah.
Speak now or forever, please.
It has been tossed before, and you've spoken of custodians
That's all the time.
and all of them. What about
Yeah.
combining our IT departments? Is
So,
that on hold for like next year type of a thing?
well, it is next year, but it's more than that.
It's way more.
It's more involved. There's other union issues. It's nowhere near the savings of like facilities. But let's just say there are other areas that, we can tackle going forward every year to try and be more efficient on both sides. That one is much more difficult.
Okay,
Yeah, I think just the instruction side of IT alone would be so disruptive to what the town is doing.
What about purchasing?
Yeah.
Well, purchasing is one that we could look at. Or
That's one we
should
might
look. I'm
want.
gonna say should.
We should look at that, yeah.
Um,
Economies of scale. You know.
no doubt. Some of these things sound better than they are when you actually do it, but, that is one that I don't know how large of a savings it would be, but it's logical.
Well, there might be some efficiencies, like
Yeah,
Mm,
the fact that the town purchases our unleaded gas and the board purchases their own leaded gas. I mean,
Just
you know,
like the purchasing
there's
of,
there's strange stuff that goes on.
purchasing of paper,
Yeah,
yeah, that
and
too.
it creates,
Printing.
it creates this strange level of whether it's
Yeah.
communication or what it is. It's just not efficient.
Or leasing contracts too with the printers, stuff like that.
yeah,
I mean, really can put those contracts together and.
I mean,
save
you
some
may
money.
not have a reduction in personnel or
No.
anything like that. It's not that, it's combining it,
Probably,
you know, everybody needs ink. Okay, both sides need ink. And we, you
Well,
know,
they do have a person for purchasing, but I don't know if they're really doing it.
Well, they do that. That's a given, but it's not efficient that you have it on this side and you have it on this side. That's the point.
Well, that's, we
Well,
can
you're
talk
buying
about that for
printers.
years, yeah.
You know, IT buys printers.
Right.
Okay, well, they're not gonna be the exact same printers, obviously, but. You know, if you're gonna say, I'm gonna buy 10 of those, okay, great, and then the board has said, I'm gonna buy 10 of those. Well, now I'm gonna buy 20.
So it's two vendors versus, and one vendor, so that's the other thing too, you have to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some economies there and some savings and some efficiencies. You're right, I don't know if we'll get great savings, but at least it'll, over time,
Right.
become more efficient. And cost effective, probably.
If you look at the purchasing budget of both, then you could figure it, you can decide whether or not it's worth, even worth the conversation. But
Mayor.
but
I think it is though, because,
significance of both sides.
right, it's like operating out of two different houses, yeah.
But still, Mayor.
To the effect of like all the printing issues that we have and having to buy printers and paper and all this stuff, a lot of like larger corporations I've worked at ended up building a print center in like basically an in-house print shop with high capacity machines that service every department of the company instead of having each one have their own printers and their own supplies and all this other stuff. And you have one person that manages it, and all that kind of over time costs a lot less than buying printers for every room in town hall, essentially. You know, ink and printers and all the stuff to manage in IT. You have one centralized print shop that does everything for everybody. And this way, a lot of them save a lot of money that way.
Instead of buying multiple printers. you
Right,
can
buy one high
one or
capacity
two,
one that
yeah,
does everything.
in an area and just do the following printer.
Right.
You know, so they have a large.
Yeah, but not the person that is doing a print shop.
Somebody.
Mr. Martini had his hand up.
Okay, who, I can't see, but
It's not up there now.
It's done.
Changes mine.
I couldn't tell. if
Hello,
he-
everybody. Hello. I lowered my hand. I figured when I'm in person tomorrow, I could just address it. Just so you know, we don't buy individual printers and or ink. We all print, we all like the gentleman who just spoke. So sorry, I met you last meeting and I totally forgot your name.
Second.
But we have network printers to our copiers, so everybody prints to the copier, swipes in that way. So we already realized sort of this efficiency. Like the mayor said, we're happy to explore this. Anytime we can find any efficiencies. We likely purchase a lot more paper than you folks do. But we don't buy individual printers except for a few one-offs, but those are rarities. All of our teachers print to a copier on a floor, or even perhaps in a small school to an entire school. I don't have a printer in my office. I print to, a copier with a section of the BOE, et cetera. It's all a part of our lease agreement on our copiers. So
Yeah.
happy to explore it. We're taking notes on some of the things that you folks, were just discussing so we can provide answers.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily mean as far as BOE is, but town hall and all the other,
These are all.
departments themselves.
Those are all networks.
Those are all networks.
Yeah.
This is the way to go today.
all right, so
It's a lot of IT work to configure that over and
Well,
over.
if it was all in one place, that was like a print shop for the town. It'd be easier to manage.
We do have one of those.
For that.
all right, so let me rattle off the topics one at a time, and we'll see if there's any questions or concerns. Does anyone have any concerns about any of the departments on the borough side and our $875,000 increase? All right? Is there anyone who has any concerns about or questions about our plan to transfer and use capital reserves to help us bridge this gap? Okay? Is there anyone who has any questions or concerns about realigning our facilities department? Okay. On the ultimate issue, when all is said and done, we're gonna have to pick a number that is going to be the number that will go to the Board of Ed, additional funds, and then we're gonna have to take that number and break it into two pieces. So I guess the question is, without picking that final number, which is the ultimate decision, are there any questions or concerns about any of those categories I mentioned? BOE, pension contribution, workers' comp, OPEB contribution, dental self-insurance, or unemployment. I mean, to me, those are the items that are non-educational and do not impact the Board of Ed in their operation. So we all agree with that?
Absolutely, definitely.
All right. So what we're gonna be left with is when we put all the numbers together, is gonna be the actual ultimate number that will go to the Board of Education over and above where they are now, which will be 4 million plus X. And we're gonna have to pick the X, and that will be the final decision. Is there anyone who wants to comment on that?
Not today.
I think what we've done with movement of the funds, the assuming of the facilities responsibilities, I think the town has made a really good faith effort to
I think
close
so, too.
the gap for education. The remaining has to fall to the Board of Ed to figure out at this point. I think we've done all we can. I don't know how many more tricks we have up our sleeve to make this happen. You don't want to be a gimmicky budget. And this isn't, but I don't think we can go any further without being that. So it does come down to the Board of Ed's gonna have to find, I mean, those of us that were on the board of Mayor Burgess's, when the phase in for the assessments went in, we made a covenant with the people of Naugatuck that we would get the mill rate down to a certain number to correspond with the phase in. As much as I love education and want to support it, I don't want to break that covenant. I refuse to. My name is on that vote. I'm one of the people who's in that room. And I'm not gonna renege on that. That's not gonna happen. But I think on the town side, we've done all we can. This is really pushing it too.
The only other thought I have is, are we considering, the major shortfall of the education budget this year was state funding that just dried up? Are we taking into consideration that happening again down the road in the next couple of years?
Well.
Oh, they will be adjusting.
So you're
Right.
Yeah, so I would. Next
We should
year,
probably plan a little.
They're gonna cut it every year for the next
Right.
3 years.
Right.
well, that's the elephant in the room. What's
Yeah.
gonna happen next year, the year after, the year after, so. it's-
Well, we're gonna have cutbacks in funding if the Amazon revenue starts coming in. We're gonna have a
Yeah,
better
they can't fix
formula
every
again, which will
Right,
reduce the contributions of the state.
right, so.
That will happen.
Yeah, so I would say it like.
Before we find ourselves shutting another school down.
We're gonna have about a 2-year period where there's construction and incentives and kicking in, so let's just say the next 2 years are gonna be better than the last two, but not as good as the ones following it, because there's built-in
Right.
revenue in all those subsequent years, so years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are probably gonna have more revenue than the next two. The next two will have more than we have now, but not as much as we're getting. So our whole plan is geared towards bringing in those revenues that are gonna come in over a period of years and get bigger every year.
Yeah.
So next year is gonna be a big year.
It'll be a challenge.
How long is it term before Amazon is moved in, starts paying on the tax liability?
But so, the way, well, there's a construction period where they don't have to pay. But it's gonna go 20, 40, 68, 100, so, and this is, by state law. They're in an enterprise corridor zone.
Yeah.
So in the first year after construction, we'll get 20% of the revenues, 40 the second, 60 the third, 80 the fourth, year 5, 100, and thereafter 100. So it's,
Is there any consideration for if they don't finish the project and don't move in?
well, if they build it, they have to pay whether they move in or not.
Yeah, okay.
That'll be a phase. Eventually they will.
All right. Are there any questions about any topic that we discussed tonight?
I think this is, I think it's a plan. I think it's a well thought out plan. And, like Charlie said, once we pick that number, it's up to the Board of Ed to make that final push to make the adjustments that they need to make. And, if you've looked at some of the budgets around this state that, schools have been putting out there, I'm hoping we don't get to that point. So some schools are like cutting back on everything. And, we made great strides to bring some of the sports and everything back in to the fold. And I really don't want us to go down that path again. So I'm sure that they have a little bit of lead left in their pencil where they can just sharpen it up a bit.
They can cut people. It's gonna be horrible.
Well,
Let's wait.
I get
wait,
that, I
wait,
get
let's
that.
not talk
You know
about
what?
sharpening pencil with our budget.
at the end of
If
the
they cut a
day,
million and a half, that's fine.
at the end of the day, you have to make decisions
Oh, is that right?
that
I
work,
don't know that after 40 years.
that work best on both sides of the house.
It's not
Whether
gonna
we
work well
like it
on
or
this side.
not, we understand that we have to provide a valuable resource and education to our children. But we also have to make adjustments and we have to make the appropriate adjustment that makes sense without devaluing their level of education. We get that. Every year we go through this and we get it. Some years are harder than others. This happens to be one of them.
As much as I appreciate your explanation of education to me, I will tell you that I cannot hear, we're gonna sharpen our pencil when we're taking another $1.5 million out of a budget that's already cut a school and many bodies. And many of them are irreplaceable.
I get that.
Okay, I
get
just want
that.
that to be
I
said.
understand that. I am
This is
not
not sharpening
discounting
a
your
pencil.
knowledge at all about education. But at some point in time, a decision has to be made. And you
And
can't,
it's more than sharpening a pencil.
well, I get that. That's just an expression. So let's not get hung up on the word sharpening a pencil. But at the end of the day, decisions have to be made. We understand this is just as painful for us as everybody else.
Well, part of the problem is special ed.
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's
it's not like you can't, you don't have a choice.
When you
We
look at
don't
the
have
grant
a
funding and the
choice
amount that they
Yeah.
cut
When it
for Title
comes,
One
right,
through
that's what I'm
4.
saying. So I don't know what, we're helping them, they're doing what they can do. Unfortunately, a lot of that is out of the control of the Board of Ed, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and everyone sitting in this room.
And a long time ago, we made a decision in this country that we were gonna educate all kids.
So part of this is the state.
That's right.
Yes.
State. By the way, there will be continuing efforts to encourage the state to provide more.
Exactly.
And this is not just Nautica, it's.
Right. No, it's
every-
everywhere.
It's every town.
Yeah,
If you look
every
at
town.
some of the budgets, they're all feeling the same thing.
Is it something that maybe we should consider what the expense versus what we're missing down the road of bringing it back in-house into our own education system instead of trucking kids all over the state?
I don't know if we have control over
I
it.
mean, you
It's not that simple.
guys will be able to say better, you don't have a
Hold on.
choice.
Tim, would you
Here's the thing.
address Eric's question?
Sure. So every decision for a special ed child is made on an individual basis.
Yeah.
After a series of testing,
That's something that
The whole
IEPs have
thing.
been through.
but the whole thing.
Yeah,
Once you get to the point where you're asking for an outplacement, what you are saying as a team is that it's not appropriate any longer to educate that child in this school.
Right.
It is not a decision that's made lightly. There's a lot of people involved in it. And yeah, schools can put their feet down and some systems spend a lot of money doing that and say, we're gonna have a hearing. Frankly, you lose.
Well, what I think I really meant
Okay, go ahead.
to clarify was where this expensive, the biggest thing was that transportation.
Mhm.
That was like $800,000.
It's crazy.
I mean, how many salaries can we employ people in our own town for that $800,000? We'll just do it our damn
Yes.
selves.
You're
Funding half,
absolutely
You know?
right.
It's
You're
crazy,
absolutely
and
right.
that's just getting people there, much less the paying for
Yes,
this.
That's what I'm
You're
thinking,
absolutely right.
renegotiate
The needs are
some of
not
those expenses.
Unified, so there's
Maybe
very
we do the
complex needs, so it's like,
Or
yeah,
having
we
it done
can,
in-house.
we can spend that. So it's not like all these kids need one thing. They
Right.
might need separate
Hmm.
things. So it's hard to say that, we could take the 800,000 in transportation and just create a program here.
Yeah.
Cause we don't know the details, and we're not supposed to know the details, but these guys could be different ages, different complexities.
Yeah.
There could be a medical need or whatever it is. So that's why it's messy.
Yeah.
And-
Good.
Yeah, just so Kim and Charlie are probably better able to answer this, but when you're at that level of going out placement,
Yeah.
isn't it usually either the state or courts involved in that? It's.
No, not usually,
No?
not
Okay.
usually. No,
Want the
it's,
courts involved.
it's-
That's
no,
how
I
you
know.
frame it, right?
Okay, my mistake, then I.
no, the conversations we were just having on this end is there a way to do the transportation more cheaply? And
No, I don't
to be honest with you, I have not seen a plan in 3 different school systems in many years, many PPTs. That offers anything like that because of the certification involved, it's not just, you can't just put them in a cab.
Right.
That cab has to have a person that's been fingerprinted and
Yeah.
background checks and all that other stuff. And that comes with money.
It changed over the years.
Yep.
When I first started, I did homebound tutoring, and that was kids that were placed in their house or whatever. I went here.
Right.
And then after a while, they really deemed that really not safe, Cause I was being placed in a house with a kid with an ankle bracelet or a kid, whatever.
Yeah.
This is just my first year doing this, but
Yeah, yeah.
But like to see that like a reliance on an outside source has
Right.
created this downfall for us, and now it's a problem. Where I think if we can get ourselves to be more autonomous and self-reliant and have our own system, we don't need all these outside
Right.
sources of
So the
funding
special,
everything
the
else.
special ed department's goal is always to educate all children in district.
Right.
That's their goal. And sometimes there are needs that the district cannot provide, and that's what happens. But
Right,
their goal has always been to educate as many children in district as possible.
I'm just saying, at the point we have to pick up essentially an $800,000 tab, how many of those resources in other towns and other places that are not privatized, could we bring back into the town with that same money and just do it our damn selves?
No, I hear what you're saying, and private schools actually have buses
Yeah.
that they maintain on their grounds and their teachers.
I'm not even talking about transporting, I'm talking about the resource teachers, rather than if you have a blind student that has to go to a school for the blind.
Mhm.
Have a teacher in our own school system that's part of special ed,
We've done that.
rather than spending
In this
800
community,
just to get them to a school.
Yeah, in this community, we started
Yeah.
bringing kids back into the system
Yeah.
almost 40 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it was a huge thing
Massive undertaking.
by some amazing people.
It's a humongous undertaking.
Say this about the Board of Ed, it
Keeps us
is,
safe.
Naugatuck is well known
Yes.
for how well we take care of our special needs
Yes.
students.
So I'll say this more recently,
Mhm.
having worked in these outplacement schools and with families and homes. Naugatuck has a reputation of being, I'll say, some districts will outplace anyone. They'd
Yes.
rather deal, Naugatuck does not.
Right.
I did some work in this district. I've seen it firsthand. They do a fantastic, they do as much as they can with what they have.
Mhm.
And so this isn't frivolous. I know that has sometimes been a concern by people in the public that, we over identify kids. You give too many kids IEPs and that is not the case here at all.
So Steve,
Yes.
you agree that this year
Yeah.
was different in the sense.
Well, I think,
Five out of town
yeah,
people
exactly.
moved here during the
Exactly.
school year, which makes it even more difficult.
So when, yeah, and that's another important thing, for those that don't know, if you live in Cheshire and you move to Naugatuck, you have an IEP in Cheshire. That, it doesn't matter where in this country you move to, you can move to Alaska, you have to provide what the IEP says. So, yeah, was it five kids?
Five over 150,000.
That's exactly, and that wasn't because we had a deficiency in our programming, that's because they moved here already with that in there, and we have to abide by it.
Please don't advertise. Please do well.
Now, Steve, are you familiar, is there something that is coming from possibly through committee, state level, addressing outplacement and fee structures and everything else?
Yeah, so the governor has, one of his priorities is to, support districts on keeping kids in district as much as possible, which is, you know, ideal. Most, I can't speak monolithically, but I know from my perspective as being in schools, working as a behavior analyst, and we want kids with special needs to be able to be around non-disabled peers or age-related peers as much as possible. And, want them to be part of the communities that they live in, if that's what the families, value, which most of them, my experience, do. So, yeah, the governor's, I don't know details on it, but I know several weeks ago, made that announcement where, that's an initiative to support keeping kids in district. So, maybe that'll help us going forward.
So Steve, what do you think about the shift to, from special ed to early childhood? Governor seems to.
Oh, yeah.
Which is.
The earlier
makes sense in
intervention,
some ways.
the earlier interventions, the better, right?
Yeah.
And once, so this is what I was on the board of that, right? You invest early on in your preschools and your K through 2, and just front load those resources. That's an investment for 10, 15 years into the future. So you have fewer of these.
Exactly.
It's research based.
Except there's kids in third grade right now that won't get the benefit of that 10
No.
years from now as it creeps up along the school system. So when we talk about shifts, you're talking, most people don't understand that. Most people don't understand that when you make a shift in a school system, that we're gonna front load and we're gonna do all this and it's gonna come up and it's gonna make things better. They forget that there's kids here right now. You shift that money down here and guess what? That kid gets left behind.
I'm not.
I know you're not, I know you're not, I've been in administration, so that's why I think of that.
Yes.
Because I've seen these shifts before and it sounds really good on paper. But there's a whole group of kids that are gonna get left behind. And I really don't like when I hear governors talking about education. That's why we have local control. Because governors don't understand that there's that group of kids right there. They're looking at this bright future for kids as it creeps up and that funding creeps up. And guess what schools have to do? They have to figure out what to do with these kids. So, there's a lot of issues here. And you probably have guessed that I'm kind of passionate about this, but I've seen this many, many times. This is how it goes in schools. And somebody has to make up for that difference. And some of it is kids.
Mary, Jeff, do you guys have anything to offer us from what Board of Ed perspectives so we can hear you?
Right, I mean, I think you guys know.
No at all.
The special
That is
ed
not true.
costs are astronomical.
Yeah.
And the best, right, we're doing our best to mitigate.
I think trying to get kids like back from East and the Chase back into the North, that would help with transportation and outsourcing, like, let's get our kids back.
Right.
Do you have kids with IEPs?
But you have the sources here for.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's.
Oh, yeah, and yes, we do, because we have building special ed people who have to go there and provide services.
Right.
Yeah.
Transportation.
Yeah, and that's less time they're in a building. There's no way.
Right.
All right, last call for questions or comments. Alma?
Me, I'm good. I'm listening to all of them.
All the extracurriculars, huh?
And then thinking, get them on the other end.
Right.
Because we don't correct it here. They go right into the college. We get them on that end. And guess what? We are not trained to do that. Just saying. So fix it right now, fix it. But with the increase of kids with neurodivergency, how are you gonna deal with that? Because every year it's gonna get, it's projected to just get worse. And some of it is just identifying kids who were not previously identified, and that is becoming more and more so. It's a problem that we have to sort of address. And I think in terms of bringing things back in district, maybe the district staff needs to start looking long-term at how to deal and how to manage that kind of thing, because it's getting progressively worse. And we are becoming an attractive district for kids with, and that's a good thing that we can provide.
Understood.
But on the other hand, we have to sort of prepare to provide.
Yeah, you're right. All right, well, I hear for the.
All right, last call.
We'll meet again tomorrow.
Do we do motions?
No, this is not.
It's a workshop, so you don't
Workshop.
You really want to have a motion tomorrow?
Tell the owl to
You
shut
get
up.
them at a company.
Yeah.
You just have to
So,
Are we stopping recording now?
stop the recording.
Stop recording.
this concludes the workshop.
Yes.
Stop recording.
Thank you.
So tomorrow is motions and all.